Hey everybody, it's Gary Lucas, and I'm broadcasting today at 3 o'clock New York time, actually at 9 p.m. Netherlands time. I'm here in beautiful Maastricht, Holland, in the south, in a safe house of, a very good friend. And I ain't disclosing no names, but anyway, I'm going to play for you for half an hour and kibitz and everything and tell you more about how I got here and what I'm planning to do here. But let's just get right down to it. So you can get that camera angle. Oh, that's better, right? Hey, Dance of Destiny. That's one of my favorites in the Dark Matter series of Lucas compositions. And anyway, okay, so a little backstory how I got here. Well, ostensibly, I was brought here to play a festival in Eindhoven, a really beautiful city, about 2 hours from here, really, depending on how you go, kind of in the middle of Holland. And I think if you've been watching this regularly, you know that the Netherlands was really the first country that took to my artistry in a big way. I started to play here. Well, I started coming here. I think my first trip was in 1978 on a little visit with my first wife, Ling, to her Dutch friends, Karen van Heek, Flip Nagler, Bien van Heek. We had a wonderful time, and we went to Enschede, where the Van Heek ancestral mansion reposes, and we saw the little room behind the fireplace where they hid Jews during World War II. We had a really nice time, and then I came back in 1980 for a series of shows here with Dom Van Vliet, Captain Beefheart. As you may know, he was of Dutch ancestry, and pretty much wherever we went, people point to him and try and speak to him in Dutch, which he didn't speak, and I'm not very fluent either, sorry. But that was a lot of fun, and the audiences were always chanting, Van Vliet, Van Vliet. It's a very common name here, in fact. It's almost like the Dutch version of Smith, you know, so that was a lot of fun. And I think what happened next, there was a hiatus of some years, and then a couple of manic fans from Rotterdam, my friend Rick Vermeulen and his friend Hank Tas, I must look them up, who worked for a design firm in Rotterdam. They came to New York and saw I was starting to do shows at the Knitting Factory on Houston Street, the old knitting factory. This is 1988. And they came to one and they were very taken by my solo work. So they came back and told their friends here in the Netherlands, and then someone said, we ought to bring him to play. People would really enjoy him here, I think, because there are many, many Captain Beefheart fans. And they did that. I got contacted by an agency in Nijmegen that was called, let me think now, the Chaz Agency, that was named after Charles Mingus, Chaz Mingus. And they were primarily a jazz booking agency, and people like to categorize me as jazz, and hey, I'll accept it. I mean, you know, what is jazz, really, but a vulgar term for fornication, if you look into that etymology. But anyway, as we moving right along here, I came over for a series of shows in 1989, and in fact, pretty much my entire first album, Skeleton at the Feast, was recorded live in Holland, some of it at the Jazz Marathon in Groningen, which was a lot of fun. I remember I had a dressing room right next to Cecil Taylor, who I had later encounters with, and he was definitely a fan of the weed, as was I. I mean, it was odoriferous, this whole dressing room area. And anyway, so, and then I later did a series of shows at the BIM House, which is kind of like the Temple of Jazz here in the Netherlands. And I think I've done at least 30 to 35 shows, both at the BIM House, and then another 30 to 35 shows at the Paradiso, both of them in Amsterdam, and both of them really excellent, outstanding, more or less national music venue treasures in Holland, going way back. And a lot of fine people preceded me and are still playing there now. So I have a long history. I've spent a lot of time here over many years. I used Amsterdam particularly as my base for numerous tours of Europe. And, you know that city very well. I don't know Maastricht so well, though I'm pretty sure I played here, or in Haarlem. I know that I played in Haarlem. That's about a half an hour from here. But Maastricht is beautiful. I was walking around here today, and see if I can even show you a little bit here. Let's just come over here and look out the the window and look over the neighborhood. Everything is sort of in lockdown in Holland right now, unfortunately. But here's a guy on a bike whizzing by. Yeah. And it's a charming, you probably can't see that much, but it is really beautifully appointed architecture and a charming city, well appointed, very civilized, and I love Holland. And actually the climate as presently constituted is really favorable. They're having warm days. It rained a bit today. But anyway, it rains quite frequently in the Netherlands. But it was raining in New York when I left. But so anyway, I got invited to play this festival, which is entitled So What's New Festival. And it's going to be in the Eindhoven Muziekgebouw, which is a big art center. And the programmer, Frank Veenstra, brought me to Holland to play many years ago with Joseph van Wissem, the Dutch lute player. I did a couple of records for Bebehaast label, which was Willem Breuker Collective. If you're a free jazz fan, you know that name. They had their own label and record company, distribution. Anyway, because of the COVID situation, they've had to pretty much forego the concerts in venues, and they're doing them as live streams. And they were kind enough to have me come over to play live because I really couldn't do what I was invited to do from New York, even with the best of Zoom and the technology, trying to adjust for the time lag factor. It probably would have been disastrous. So next week, I'm going to tape my live score to Spanish Dracula in the Muziekgebouw in one of the small rooms. And I'm going to play into a projected, I brought over the film in various formats to project, and I'll be reacting to it live. And that, I think, is going to go out on their website. I'll find out more details. I think Saturday was the original night of the performance scheduled, which is Halloween, as you know. All Hallows Eve. That's my silly season. No, that's prime territory for me around the world. Let's see, last year, where was I? I played on Halloween in, I think it was in Cineteca Nacional. No, it was in an art center in Cuernavaca, Mexico, for Carlos Becerra and his lovely wife Solange Garcia last Halloween. And Day of the Dead, which is November 1st, I am doing here a broadcast with a great Dutch acoustic bass virtuoso, Peter Willems, who's also an excellent singer, and I'm going to be recording an album with him while I'm here. I'm here till about November 11th, working with Peter, apart from the taping of these two shows. And a little bit about Peter, my friend Code de Kloot, great Dutch legendary DJ, producer. He's the Zappa Beefheart go-to guy of the Netherlands, as was his father. He followed in his father's footsteps, a good, close personal friend of Frank and Don's. And last year had me play at a famous jazz club in Laren, Holland, called Nick Voldebrecht Jazz Club. Did an acoustic set, and Peter Willems came all the way from Maastricht, which is like 2 or 3 hours on a train, primarily to see me play and meet me, and I was so taken with his enthusiasm. He's a super nice guy that it's a pleasure to be working with him. I'm going to start intensive rehearsals tomorrow, in fact. Today was a recovery day. I slept about 9 hours. I've had sleep apnea problems. But just getting out of New York really did the trick. Also the jet lag. Oh, but how I got here is also interesting because, I was worried that I would get turned away. There was, there's a kind of a travel ban going on Americans all over the world because of the terrible mismanagement of the virus and its after effects by the Trump administration. Let's call a spade here. They've done a piss poor job. Everybody knows it, except their fervent believers who think it was the state's issue. There was no national leadership. A good reason to vote the rascals out. And I did cast my absentee ballot before I left. When I got to the airport, despite all of the protections and assurances I received from the organizers here, Frank and Marika Mishki, very nice people, the guy at KLM stared balefully at me and said, man, this is letter of invitation, which I brandished, is not good enough. The COVID test, we don't care about that. This is not essential travel. And I said, au contraire, mon frère, I am here on a cultural invitation from a Dutch government-sponsored festival. And in Holland, they really treat the arts really with some serious respect. Maybe it's gotten worse over the last decade or so as as the economic situation got worse. But there still are instances where this happens, and as a long-time player over here, I'm fairly well known on the musical horizon. I've played at least 50 or 60 different venues around Holland, including some really dodgy places in the middle of nowhere to chandeliered large halls here, and places such as events like the Holland Festival 2 or 3 times with film soundtracks, and my Chinese pop project. That's the #1 national arts festival of the Netherlands, the Holland Festival. So anyway, I got busy on the phone, like, oh no, you can't do this to me. And I spent a lot of money dialing Holland and getting my organizer on the phone, Marika, and she talked to them and they stonewalled her. And I just kept in their faces in a nice, polite way, as I am. Until finally this guy's supervisor came forward from KLM and said, I'm going to write Dutch immigration. They usually get back to me, just wait. So this was already at about 4:30 and the gate was going to close at 5 or 6. So I waited there, and phoned my wife and said, I think I'm coming home. What a bummer. And I filled her in. But actually at 5:30, the gentleman came back to me and he said, okay, you've got clearance to go on board. So I want to thank Dutch immigration authorities for being on the ball and honoring their commitments to my organizer friends. And I want to thank KLM for a smooth ride once I got on that flight. Now, there were only about 50 people, all masked, of course, on the flight, but it was really a pleasurable non-stop trip. Now, almost I had the same situation at the border, and they looked like they were going to get heavy with me, and I said, here, man, I'm with the band. No, I brandished my cell phone, which had a photograph of the gentleman who gave me the all clear, his phone, which had the message from Dutch immigration. I said, I've been authorized by Dutch immigration for clearance, and they said, okay. So here I am, I was picked up by car service, driven to Maastricht, and basically have been recuperating ever since. And the little R&R is good for everybody once in a while, is it not? So I'm gonna play for you here some more. I want to get this thing in tune because it's the theme from a wonderful fantasy film called The Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe. And it's a score by Lee Harline, who wrote When You Wish Upon a Star. And these movies really provided a lot of fuel for me to want to continue in music or choose music as a profession. And I'm still here, baby. All right, now let's see. What time is it? Well, I think I got a few more minutes left. Okay. Now, time for a commercial here. Let's put this right up in the front. I have a double CD best of album due to come out January 29th on Knitting Factory Records. Here it is. This picture was taken in Holland, in fact, at the Holland Festival, when I did a live score in combination with the Ensemble Chameleon, really talented gang of Dutch classical musicians. And we did a score, a 2-hour, 45-minute score for J'accuse. Sounds like jacuzzi. No. J'accuse, I Accuse, which is based on an anti-war novel. Nothing to do with the Dreyfus Affair, although they used that. Title during the Dreyfus Affair was Émile Zola wrote a famous letter, but I digress. J'accuse is a 1924 anti-war film. 1922. And it was filmed right at the end of World War I. And it's kind of a horror film. It's a melodrama, but there are horrific moments when the dead on the battlefield in France in World War I rise miraculously at one junction and march on Paris. And they actually used a cast of thousands, including disabled and maimed people who'd been dismembered in the war but were still walking wounded. And so they didn't really use a lot of prosthetic makeup in this sequence. It's kind of horrific, but I set that sequence to my Jeff Buckley music, Rise Up to Be, which, if you know the history of that song, became the song Grace. And I think I'll play that to finish the set. Anyway, we sold out 2 nights of a performance of this monumental score. They had a great Dutch composer, young fellow named Reza Namovar, who did the orchestral cues, some with guitar. Very talented guy. I did this in Berlin with him a couple of years later. I want to thank Lieven Bertels, who was the programmer at the Holland Festival and hooked up the gig in Berlin. Anyway, 2 standing ovations in the Stadschouwburg at, was it the Stadschouwburg? Yeah, I think so, in Amsterdam, right in Leidseplein. Beautiful modern theater, large theater. They were going to issue a DVD, and then somebody pulled the plug. I don't know. I think we got up the nose with our score of a famous British film historian who shall remain nameless, who didn't think the music appropriate to his hallowed silent film, and different strokes for different I don't know. But someday that score will come out. There were all sorts of clips on YouTube that got yanked off by the Eye Museum. Thank you very much. Not really. It's one thing to to disagree with somebody's work, but to censor the work and remove it from a website because you're pushing somebody else's score is really very bad form, in my opinion. Sorry, guys. I love that last chord. That's bittersweet, just like life. And thank you for allowing me to play for you on this lovely evening here in Maastricht. I'm so happy to be back in Holland. You have no idea. But I really miss Caroline too, and so she's watching. Big hug, big kiss to you. And I'll see you all again, hopefully on Saturday. We got to figure this out. What day is it today, anyway? Yeah, Saturday I should be back in Holland, I think. Well, I don't know. Anyway, if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium. No, it's Netherlands. We'll work it out, or you'll see a notification in any case. Love to you guys, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.